Dr. M. Selvam, Vice Chancellor, Bharatidasan University, Dr. N.S. Prasad, Executive Committee Member, National College, Thiru N. Sivanandam, Vice President, State Committee, Desiye Chintanai Kalagam, distinguished Vice Chancellors, ex-Vice Chancellors, faculty members, those who have participated in this conference or workshop, dear students, gracious ladies and gentlemen, அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். It gives me immense pleasure to come to an institution which is over a century old and has produced a number of luminaries, national assets. I was briefed and I was quite impressed by the galaxy of intellectuals, national leaders which this institution has produced. And coming to its premises is indeed a matter of pride. And I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. While I am happy to come to this great institution, I have come to be a part of, though it is at the concluding stage, of a discussion on the contribution of our languages, South Indian languages, to the national freedom movement. I am sure the discussions must have been very, very fruitful, and it must have been very, very helpful to the participants in acquainting themselves with the contributions these languages have made. We know that our national freedom movement was a mass movement, and a mass movement cannot happen without an effective mass communication. And for effective mass communication, it has to be in the language of the people. It cannot be in a foreign language. Now, when we discuss about a particular language contribution, first of all, it is given that language, because people of all parts of the country, they participated in the movement. It is with a collective effort. Now, how much literature is there in that language? That is, of course, a matter of a research, matter of a study. Because all those who carried on the national freedom movement, they communicated in the language of the people. One, of course, to connect with the people, and the second also to ensure to escape the British authorities, the attention of British authorities, because English was not an option for them. And English, if at all there were English communication, these were by and large innocuous in nature, not very, very, very pithy or very substantive. So, communicating in the local languages, languages of the people, Because in that they knew the art of putting things in between the lines, which a simple translation would not be able to make out. And if the British authorities, when they got it translated, many often they missed the message which was meant for the people, those who got the message. So that's the beauty of the communication in the local languages, the regional languages. I am sure the researchers, the academicians, they would work on it, they work more on it and try to collect and compile the literature, available literature in regional language on national freedom movement. I am not very sure whether everything was documented in written form. Quite a lot could be even in the folklore. It is not necessary that freedom movement was only done by the people who were high and mighty, they were great people. The movement happened at the grassroots. So even if the movement details are there available in the folk tales, in the stories, those are worth preserving, worth documenting for the posterity. But here I would like to raise some basic questions. The questions which are more basic, more fundamental when it comes to our national freedom movement, the history of our national freedom movement. To some of you, it might look absurd question. What is this? But the fact is that there is lack of clarity on our national freedom movement. The mainstream narrative of the national freedom movement, which have been taught, which have been recorded, documented, and which are taught to our students in schools and colleges, are by and large revolve around the history of Indian National Congress, because they were the one who were prominently leading the movement. Mahatma Gandhi was at the helm of affairs. So, those who were not part of the national freedom movement, they fell on the either on the margin or as the footnote or nowhere. So, what do we mean when we say national freedom movement? When we look for the movement which was a mass movement, it could not be just confined to only Indian National Congress. They were great leaders, no doubt about it. But there were far many more people. And that is how we find the people like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Veer Pandya Kattabomman, Velu Nachiyar, V.O. Chidambaram Pillai, Maruti brothers, Pulidevan, many of them. They do not find adequate place. We have started talking about them, it's a different thing now, but they do not find mainstream narrative of the national freedom movement. And there are many more. Since the freedom movement led by our great leader, father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, was essentially non-violent, what about those who chose, those who could not bear the agony of slavery, and they fought? Like Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, he built the INA, Indian National Army, and used force to fight the British. What about at individual level? Sardar Udham Singh, Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Rajguru, Sukhdev, many from here as well. They could not bear the agony and they paid the price with their life. But they were called revolutionaries and they were at that point of time and subsequently they have been projected as if they were causing a hindrance to the movement. So the mainstream narrative about the national freedom movement does not do proper justice to these people. When did the national freedom movement begin? Larger narrative in the country says 1857. Even if we take the European colonization, we don't go beyond. Even if we take European colonization of India, then was it that 1857 that the national freedom movement began? Because it is, in popular discourse, many places it is called the first war of independence. If that is so, what about 1806 in Vellore on the 10th of July, when hundreds and hundreds of Indian soldiers, they stormed this fort and killed more than 100 British military and other officials? What was that? British called it mutiny. And we accepted this as a mutiny. Was it not a freedom movement? We have to take a call. If it was not, what was it then? And there are umpteen cases, so many cases. When the what is national freedom movement? This needs to be understood. There needs to be clarity about it. We all know that our country for thousands of years was organized along villages. There was no administration, effective administration interfering or dealing with the day-to-day beyond the village. Even British, when they came, they started collecting taxes and creating issues, but the village was autonomous. And most of the villages, they resisted whenever the British tried to either occupy them or to coerce them or interfere in their life. A number of cases are there all over the country. I have seen in the northeast, the villages, when the British came, they fought. And it was an asymmetric war. On the one hand, British were equipped with firearms, and the villagers had spears, swords, daws. But they fought, and they fought valiantly. Who were they? Were they freedom fighters or they were not? And this began from the day one of the colonization, when the colonization began in the country. Where do we place them? Where does history place them? We need to take a call on that. What about people, those who would not have taken a flag of a British quit India or go back, but they challenged, fought and suffered and died because the British tried to do a permanent damage. They tried to interfere and destroy the culture and identity of the people. Such fights have happened all over the country. Coming in the context of Tamil Nadu, where do we place those people who fought in 1802 and 3 in Palai Kottam in Tirunelveli, where within a year, several hundred persons people, large number of people under British military protection, they were converted. And there was a rebellion. People fought and died. Where do we place them? Do we call them freedom fighter or do we just forget them? So our national freedom movement, and again I heard the previous speaker speaking, calling it a national liberation war. Now, on the one hand, we say it is a war, it was a war of independence. On the other hand, did we treat those who occupied and oppressed us as adversary, as enemies? In fact, our freedom, if we dispassionately look at it, the way it came, it appeared as if it was a gift. A British Parliament passed an act, India Independence Act 1947. They said, look, now we are going. And the grand farewell and ceremony given to those who had come and occupied and tortured this country. If those who colonized, those who tried to destroy and destroyed, who were they? They were friends or they were enemies? If they were friends, those who died for it, who were they then? Those who died for the freedom, did they die fighting an enemy or did they die fighting a friend? There are a number of questions which remain unanswered. Our independence, we call it transfer of power. The way the freedom movement narrative has been documented and created, it does not do justice to all those countless number of our people, those who have suffered, those who gave their life, and those who made it possible for India to become independent. There are deeper questions that need to be answered. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi has started a campaign to document the unsung heroes, only then we have started talking about people like Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Otherwise, he was on the footnote as a margin. Now we are talking about him. Yes, we are talking about him because now this is the mainstream voice. But we did not. And when I came to Tamil Nadu, and when I wanted to have the list of the freedom fighters, the list was hardly not even 30. Now I keep wondering, when we have about nearly 800 of our Indian soldiers who died in Vellore, large number of them who died at Palaikotam and many other places, in many wars which people like Velu Nachiyar, this Katta Bowman, along with them, those who fought, who were they? We need to do a lot of soul searching. A lot. This country, because its ambiguity in identifying itself and those who are our adversary, we have paid heavy price. We have paid heavy price for law. It was because of this ambiguity that we allowed the partition of the country. It was with this ambiguity that we tried to forget the POK, a large part of Jammu and Kashmir captured by Pakistan. We tried to forget it, as if let the actual control, line of control be the international border. It was this attitude that we allowed Aksai Chin to be taken away by China, and we try to forget it. We don't even talk about it. I think this attitude has confused our people. It has demoralized our people. A nation cannot be built if the people are not in high morale. And when we start looking closely, we find people who have paid the price for the freedom of this country. You find them in almost every village. In some way or other, either with life, with imprisonment, or with some other suffering, they have suffered. We must honor them. We must respect them. Today, the list of unsung heroes is growing. It has become far, far more. Because there was a time when I started defining who is a freedom fighter and giving pension also. Okay, if you have gone to jail, prove yourself, then you are a freedom fighter. Otherwise, you are not. Many self-respecting freedom fighters, they opted out. No, we have not fought for pension. We try to monetize the freedom movement in a very uncharitable way. Now, our country is answering these questions. Our people are raising the questions and finding answer to these questions. And answer to these questions are necessary for our national spirit. In fact, I have often mentioned it in my talks, but subsequently I wondered, but I was a class 6 student, and in my textbook there used to be a lesson, the advantages of British rule. I'm talking about 60s, 60, 61. And we used to have a question in our examination, yes, count the advantages of British rule, and we had memorized and we used to write, yes, English language, railways, the justice system, rule of law, as if we were barbarian. We didn't know how to talk. We had no language. Imagine. Our language is far, far superior, far, far richer. After all, what is European languages? They are only of yesterday. Tamil, Sanskrit, several thousands years old legacy. And we have been writing, we are happy, we are thankful to the British that they gave us the English language. The colonization of mind. When our minds were colonized, are colonized even today, how can we do justice to the national freedom movement? How can we, on the one hand, we remain thinking and praising those who colonized us, and we talk about the national freedom movement, those who did it? I think there is need for more honest approach to it. Every citizen, right from the day one. In the Northeast, I tried to, in the villages, when I got to the villages and heard the story, that in this village, this man's father threw a spear and killed the commandant. We put a statue of his, the village, to admire that person. He was a freedom fighter. He died, he was caught and hanged. There are many cases. They are all freedom fighters. They all martyrs. They have all given their life, their blood for us to be free. and for us to be free with pride in our independence, which has come out of the sacrifices of all those people. I think our scholars, our academicians, our students, those who are interested in researches, they need to work on it. You need to develop a perspective, a national perspective on the national freedom movement. Unless you have a national perspective on the national freedom movement, our national freedom movement history will be all concocted. And that is why on this 15th August, when the Prime Minister from the Red Fort, when he talked, he mentioned about Panch Prana, 5 resolves. And one of the resolves was total decolonization of mind. Remove the last vestiges of colonization. It's not easy. It's not easy because we don't even know. Some years back, we had a Prime Minister who went to launch an Indian chair in one of the British universities because it was chair from money from this country. And in the speech, he praised the British. I thought he was repeating what I had studied in my class 6. The benefit of the British rule in India. He was a very good person, very fine person. But it had subtly got into the subconscious. We have to consciously eradicate it. And Mahatma Gandhi was absolutely right when after the British left, people were celebrating. He was somber. And when the question was asked, why are you not happy? He said, British have left only physically. They are still embedded in our mind. And it will take minimum half of the time of colonization if we work hard to erase them from our mind. We didn't do any effort so far, but now it's time that we do it, and we must do it. And I'm sure our young scholars, our students, I'm very confident that you are the future of this country. You are the leader of this country. You will do this. And time is now. This is the time to do it. I wish you all the very best. Thank you. Nandri. Jai Hind.